On the last episode of All IndyCar, we talked about Racing Gardner, a driver with one of the strangest racing careers I've ever talked about. Today, in the continuation of my series on the most forgotten drivers in the 1996 Indy Racing League season, we talk about Butch Brickell. Welcome back to All IndyCar, the motorsports history show not only looking at the most interesting stories in American open wheel racing, but celebrating that this is the last All IndyCar episode being posted when I'm 16. Butch Brickell was born on April 18, 1957. Butch had a very strange background, as instead of racing, his family came from the political and real estate worlds. Butch's grandfather, William Brickell, was an aide for President Abraham Lincoln and was also the co-founder of the cities of Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Butch's grandmother, Mary Brickell, was also a very successful real estate agent, which added to the family's fortune even more. The family ran a successful property management group in southern Florida and even a shipping company. Despite the large fortune the Brickells had though, Butch would still try his hand at racing. Butch made starts in IMSA races in the early 1990s but wasn't successful. However, when you have a large fortune, results don't really matter as long as you're having fun and not ruining races. After some unsuccessful attempts in IMSA races, Butch was getting tired of racing in sports cars, so for the inaugural Indy Racing League season, Butch would attempt to make the transition to Indy cars. Brickell Racing would be entered for the first ever Indy Racing League event at Walt Disney World Speedway. However, during a test session before the race, Butch Brickell became the first victim of Walt Disney World Speedway's wrath. On January 13, 1996, Butch Brickell fractured two vertebrae in a crash at Turn 1. Unfortunately, Butch Brickell would not recover from these injuries in time to race at Walt Disney World, Phoenix, or the Indy 500. So as a result, Butch Brickell would never race an IndyCar. Brickell Racing would still enter Tice Carlson at the Indy 500 in 1996, but this entry went poorly as they were bumped from the field. This would be the last race that Butch Brickell or Brickell Racing would ever enter in the IndyCar world. After this, Butch Brickell would focus on the world of sports cars and being a stunt driver in Hollywood. He had a pretty lucrative career in this, as from 1993 to 2003, Butch was a stunt driver in movies and TV shows like The Specialist, Too Fast, Too Furious, and CSI Miami. Sadly, this career came to an end when on October 13th, 2003, Butch Brickell had passed away from an undisclosed illness at the age of 46. Commenters on his obituary mentioned that Butch was a very humble, kind, and charming man, with many of the commenters remembering amazing encounters they had with him. Despite the fact that success never found Butch on the racetrack, he lived an amazing yet tragically short life. He had fun driving race cars and made a career as a successful businessman and stunt driver. He lived life on the edge, and even though he was a millionaire, he stayed grateful and down to earth, and that's something you have to respect.